Hello, I decided to make another video. You're probably wondering why there's no card here, and the reason for that is this video is to show how I used a die cut that I made. If you watch my videos on my channel, I'll link to this video down below. I made this card using this die cut here, and I mentioned how I didn't want to waste all this gold paper which is behind this one, so I cut out an extra bit out of the middle, and that made me make this card. And I got this die cut out of this center, and there is also a video for this card also. And then when I had this one, I thought I could probably take this a little bit smaller, so I did. I got another die cut, and that brings me to this card which I'm making now. I got one more die cut out of that. I can't go any smaller because that is as small as this die cut set is. If I could go smaller, I probably would try. But this card is based on an Easter dress that my daughter has, and she looks wonderful in it. And yesterday she wore the dress, and I thought that would be a good opportunity to make a card based on that. I will get a picture of the dress so you can see it. But it's very easy to get inspiration from the things you see in the everyday world, which helps you tweak your creativity and get you making cards. So let me go over the materials that this card makes. I have, as I mentioned, the die cut from the gold paper, but if you don't have the die cut, you'll need gold shimmer paper by 1 3/4 by 2 1/2. I also had a scrap of watercolor paper, which I have already die cut, but if you didn't have it already, you will need a watercolor panel 1 1/2 by 2 inches, which is here. I have my card base, which is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4, a watercolor panel cut at 5 by 3 3/4, and as you can see, this is the trim end of that. And I also have a green mat cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. This card seems to have a lot to it, but that's only because of the techniques that I'm using. It's really easy and goes together very fast. So the inks I'm using, I have Twisted Citron Distress Stain. If you didn't have Distress Stain, you don't need it. I could have gotten my full pad, but I had this on my desk, so I'm using it. But the important part is the Twisted Citron. Mustard Seed and Weathered Wood. These all three are Tim Holtz Distress inks. I need my Versamark pad, and also I need a Versamark marker, and that I'll show why in a minute. And I also need my Versafine Onyx Black. I'm going to be doing a little bit of embossing, so I need my clear embossing powder, and that means of course my embossing buddy to help with that. And I also need gold and brown embossing powder. Okay, let's see. You need a little bit of gold ribbon, and of course you need the labels framelits to cut this shape. You can use the spellbinders. The one that I have is a no-name framelit set. You can use the spellbinders, and also Stampin Up has this shape in framelit. I believe there is also punches in this shape that Stampin Up has, so you could also do this in a punch. And if you didn't have this shape, you could use whatever shape you wanted. You're not tied to that. The stamp sets I'm using today is Good News by Inkadinkado, Butterflies by Hero Arts, and this comes with die cuts also. This was a really great find. If you see this in the store, definitely pick it up. I use this all the time. My little dollar stamps, they serve me well. And Stampin Up Secret Garden. Okay, let me clear away this stuff, and if I left off anything, I'll mention it as we go. But let's just get started. This first step is probably the most complicated of what we're getting ready to do, so I'm going to do that first. I need my Misty tool for this. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to emboss the cross in 2 stages. I want the gold for the sunburst and the brown for the actual wood of the cross. So in order to do that, I'm going to emboss the brown first. But pay no attention to that. I'm reusing my papers. Put this down and make real sure that it is flush with the end. And taking the embossing tool, let me do this first. This is important. Make sure that I don't get any errant sticking where I don't want it. I'm using my Versamark pad. I'm going to ink up the stamp, which is already on the door of my MISTI. Making sure that hasn't moved. And you won't be able to see it, but it's there. So I'm going to carefully put the brown onto the cross area. And I'm doing this over a coffee filter so that this stuff doesn't go everywhere. Now, you'll need to get a paintbrush and take it off of the part that you don't want brown. And you have to be really careful here. And this takes a while, so I'm going to speed this up. Now I'm going to take this and emboss it. Okay, now this has been embossed, and we want to make sure at this point that we do not get the, where's my little thing? We do not get the embossing powder to stick to the cross. It's going to stick a little bit, but we'll do what we can to make it not stick. So I'm going to run my embossing buddy over this again. And this time I'm going to take the Versafine and put it exactly where I want it to be, which is on the sunbeams. Being really careful not to get any on the wood of the cross. This will not give as crisp a result as if you had just done it, but you will get the idea of what you were trying to do. So make sure this doesn't move, so it'll stamp right over top of it. Press it, and this time we'll drop the gold embossing powder over it. And we'll see how clipped we got. Pretty good. Where did I put my, take the little paintbrush and get the little stray bits. And then run this through. Be right back. Okay, got a little bit of the gold in there. I don't know if you can see, but it'll be all right. Okay, so let me clear some of this stuff away and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, the next thing we need to do is emboss the sentiment on the card. For this one, I did the sentiment after I did the stamping, but I realized that it was better to do it the opposite way. So I'm going to run my tool over my watercolor panel. And I'm going to be using the clear embossing over Versamark, so I have to get my clear embossing ready to go. And I have this stamp that I got from Michaels. It doesn't really have any ownership of it, no company, but it was, I think it was $1.75. So I'm going to stamp it and drop the powder right on it. Take that and emboss it. Okay, now that's all embossed. And the next thing to do is to stamp the different flowers and butterfly on here. Make sure this is stuck good. So I'm going to bring in a piece of paper to protect my surface here so that I don't get too much ink scattered about. I could do this directly on here because this is non-stick, but I'm trying not to make too much of a mess for the video. So I'm starting off with the largest flower, and I'm going to just stamp it around here. think 3 of these ought to be enough. Clean my stamp. And now onto the second flower. And be sure when you're doing these sort of things that you turn the stamp multiple directions, because that's a lot more interesting than straight one all the same direction. Okay. And now finally the butterfly. Make sure that's still stuck. Okay. Take that out. And now I'm going to color these things. My daughter made me a watercolor palette, which is just cardstock, which was laminated with a laminator, and it makes it now non-stick. I've already pressed my inks that I'm going to be using onto the pad. I think I need a little bit more of this green though. And when I'm finished, I'll just wipe it off. So I'm taking my water pen, and I'm just going to pick up the color and drop it over the flowers. I'm going to speed this part up so you don't have to watch me coloring. Okay, that's all the coloring, and you just squeeze the water pen and it will run clear, and then you're ready for the next job. Okay, set this aside. I'm going to quickly hit this with my heat tool to dry it off. Be right back. Okay, now that's all dry, and I really like how it looks. I think it turned out really nice. So set that aside for a minute, and I have the ribbon to put on there. I'm going to now move on to the inside of the card. The inside of the card has a simple sentiment, which is rejoice. It has a sun. And I need the Versafine for that. Yeah, okay. Think about what I did for a second. Okay. I'm letting this dry for a second, so I'm going to also have a sentiment that says Happy Easter just below it. Okay. And taking the weathered wood, I'm going to add a few flowers to the inside. And I think also the yellow. Just here. Okay. Now that that's dry a little bit, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the yellow. Just need a little for the sun. See, it wipes right off. Clean my brush. Just need a second for this to dry. Well, I'll do this part while I'm waiting for that. So I'm going to tape the ribbon by anchoring it to the card panel. And pushing it on one side. I think I want that a little lower. And then making sure that it's straight as I can get it. It's my Waterloo. And now I'll give it a good taping. Push that back in there. And tape this down to the mat. Take my bone folder, close the card, press a good seam, and tape this down. Now I'm going to tape this to here. Sadly, I can't get any more out of that. But this one piece of glitter paper made 3 cards, so it's had a good life. Okay, and this I'll put up on foam tape. I definitely have to reorder. My wheel was started out like that, and now this is all I have left. Okay, and it would not be me if I didn't throw a little sparkle on there. So I have my Spectrum sparkle pen, and I'm going to throw a little shimmer on the flowers. This doesn't show up on the camera, but it's really visible in real life. I might as well sparkle those butterflies too. Okay, that's the finished card. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll try this card yourself, and remember how you can save your glitter paper or your expensive papers by just using a little bit of ingenuity. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I try to put out content pretty frequently. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.